The council chamber was the heart of the galaxy. It stretched wider than a planet's horizon, carved into the living crystal of a hollowed moon. 100 banners of empires floated in the air, their colors shimmering with pride. Voices of 1,000 species echoed against walls that had heard 10,000 years of history. Here wars had been declared. Here peace had been signed. Here decisions had been made that shaped entire galaxies. Every voice mattered. Every empire mattered. Every species, big or small, had a seat. But one chair remained empty. It stood near the edge of the circle, a tall-backed seat of silver, engraved with the crest of Terra. The image was simple, a small blue sphere half-covered with white clouds, glowing as if lit from within. It looked fragile compared to the banners of vast empires, fragile compared to the sigils of ancient powers who commanded fleets larger than whole continents. Yet the chair of Terra had been given its place of honor, and still, it was empty. The humans had been invited countless times. The council's envoys had crossed burning stars, had carried gifts and promises, had begged for Earth to take its place among them. But the humans never came. They never sent a delegate, never even answered a call. At first, the council laughed. "Perhaps they are too young," said the luminous Veilkin, their bodies glowing like silver mist. "Perhaps they are, too busy fighting their own wars," murmured the scarred generals of the Crux. "Perhaps," said the elder of the Zirin with a bitter click of his mandibles. "They think themselves better than us." The galaxy waited. The chair stayed cold. The years passed. Empires rose and fell. The council chamber filled with endless arguments and endless promises. But the seat of Earth never filled. Slowly the laughter turned into irritation. "Arrogant primitives," hissed a senator from the core empire. "Ungrateful children," said another, their scaled head shaking. "Let them hide in their blue world," the elder Zirin spat. "The galaxy will move on without them." And so it did. Treaties were signed. Borders were drawn. Wars were started and ended, while Earth's name was left off every page. The empty chair became part of the chamber's scenery, a thing people stopped noticing, like a scar too old to hurt anymore. But not everyone forgot. There were whispers. Merchants traveling the deep void told of human ships that sometimes appeared in the dark, faster than they should be, stronger than they had any right to be. Explorers spoke of colonies near human borders that vanished overnight. No wreckage, no survivors, only silence. And sometimes, just sometimes, entire pirate fleets disappeared when they raided too close to human space. But no proof ever reached the council. The stories were too scattered, too wild, too unbelievable. And so the galaxy carried on, telling itself the humans were nothing special, just another stubborn species clinging to their homeworld. Yet, late at night in lonely stations at the edge of the stars, some whispered differently. "They are watching," they said. "They are waiting." Generations rose and fell. Civilizations rewrote themselves. The council chamber never changed. It always shone with banners, voices, pride. But whenever new delegates entered for the first time, their eyes always fell, just for a moment, on the one chair left untouched. Some felt curiosity. Some felt irritation. But a few, a very few, felt a strange shiver of unease, for the humans were not gone. They were not broken. They were simply absent, and absence in the galaxy was never just silence. It was a shadow waiting to move. Then came the day when the question was asked again. A new species had been granted entry into the council. Young, ambitious, eager to prove themselves. They walked the great chamber, eyes wide, voices trembling with awe at the sight of so many powers gathered together. They bowed, they pledged loyalty, they promised peace. And then, as their eyes swept across the circle of seats, one of them frowned. "Honored ones," the new delegate asked. "Whose chair is that? The one no one sits in?" The chamber grew quiet. The elder of the Zirin leaned forward, mandibles clicking with old irritation. "That chair belongs to the humans. To Earth." The young delegate tilted their head. "And why do they not sit here?" A ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the chamber. Some delegates looked away, pretending to find their screens more interesting. Others shook their heads with annoyance. Finally, the elder of the Zirin answered, his voice sharp. "Because humans are proud. Too proud to join us, too proud to speak. They live in their shadows and their silence. They think themselves above the galaxy." The chamber hummed with agreement. But under the hum was something else. a feeling no one spoke aloud. Fear, because deep inside, though no one would admit it, the galaxy did not know why humans stayed away. And not knowing was worse than any insult, and so the chair remained empty, cold, silent, untouched, a symbol of absence, a reminder of pride, and a shadow waiting in the corner of the galaxy. The galaxy forgot the laughter. They forgot the irritation. But they never truly forgot the humans. No one dared to say it aloud, but the thought hung in the chamber like a ghost. What if one day they come? The empty chair of Earth stayed in the council hall, gathering silence like dust. But silence never truly stayed empty. It always grew into whispers. At first, the whispers were small. Stories told in crowded starports where travelers gathered after long voyages. A merchant captain, half drunk and tired, swore he had seen a human vessel near the edge of the rim. It came out of nowhere, he said, eyes wide, dark as night, fast as lightning. Then it was gone like smoke and wind. His listeners laughed at him, but none of them truly forgot the story. Years passed. More whispers came. Explorers who wandered too close to human space returned with strange tales. They spoke of ships with black hulls moving without sound. They spoke of patrols that never answered hails, never spoke a word, only watched from the shadows until the explorers turned back. Some explorers never returned at all. Their signals faded into silence. Their ships, their crews, their cargo all vanished. No wreckage drifted, no distress calls echoed. It was as if the void itself had swallowed them whole. On the trade routes, pilots began to warn one another. Do not drift too close to human borders. Do not test their patience. Pirates, of course, did not listen. To them, humans were weak, just a stubborn species hiding on one small planet. Easy prey, they thought. So fleets of raiders hungry for slaves and spoils crossed into Terran space, and then nothing. The pirates did not return. Not even scraps of their broken hulls floated back across the border. Whole fleets disappeared as if erased. The galaxy never learned what happened to them. That was when the whispers began to change. At first, humans were called arrogant, stubborn, fools who ignored the council. But now the words grew softer, sharper. They are watching us, some said. They do not speak because they do not need to. They are preparing for something we cannot see. The laughter faded from the council halls. Delegates stopped making jokes about the empty chair, and when someone new asked about Earth, the answer was given quickly without details, as if speaking too much of humans might bring them into the room. But whispers are living things. They grow, they change. They travel faster than light. On border colonies, parents told their children bedtime warnings. Be kind. Be quiet, do not wander too far, for the humans are listening. And the children, wide-eyed, would ask, are they monsters? The parents never answered, because they did not know. On distant mining worlds, workers told each other stories to chase away the dark. They spoke of human soldiers who could fight for days without rest, of human warships that could strike with thunder and vanish before the enemy even blinked. None of it was proven. But the fear inside the stories was real. Not everyone believed the whispers. Many called them nonsense. The core senators scoffed. Children's tales. The Veilkin laughed, their glowing bodies flickering. Ghost stories to scare fools. Even the elder Zirin, who hated Earth most of all, sneered. If humans had power, they would sit in their chair. They would take their place. But they are nothing, weak, hiding. And yet, for all their scorn, none of them dared to fly too close to Earth's borders. Not even the mighty fleets of the Zirin. What unsettled the galaxy most was this. The humans had never shown their strength. They had never declared war. They had never sent threats. They had never answered the council, not even with a single word. They simply remained silent. It was the silence that frightened people more than any weapon. Silence meant patience. Silence meant waiting, and patience in war was more dangerous than fury. One night in a lonely refueling station at the edge of the void, two old traders spoke in hushed voices. Do you think the humans will ever come? One asked, his hands trembling around his drink. The other stared into the darkness beyond the station's windows. They will come, he said softly. When? The first asked. When the galaxy is weakest, the second replied. When we need them most or when we least expect them. Neither of them slept that night. The whispers of fear traveled further than any fleet. They crawled into the hearts of soldiers, senators, kings. They lived in the silence of the council chamber, in the empty chair that no one touched. And though the galaxy pretended not to care, though leaders told themselves that humans were nothing but arrogant primitives, deep inside they all carried the same unspoken thought. If Earth is preparing for something, what will happen when they finally arrive? For centuries, the galaxy lived in uneasy balance. Wars flared, but the Council always found a way to end them. Empires fought, but treaties stitched the wounds. Even when hatred burned hot, peace was forced into place. But peace is fragile, and one day it shattered. The Sorak Dominion came like a storm. They were not diplomats. They were not builders. They were devourers. Their fleet swarmed like endless insects, dark hulls covered in living chitin, their ships grown rather than forged. They did not negotiate. They did not listen. They only consumed. The first attack came on a border colony of the gentle Valekan. It was a quiet place of gardens and silver towers. In a single night it was ash. The Valekan begged the Council for help. Fleets were sent, armies deployed. The galaxy expected victory, but the Sorak did not break. They multiplied. For every ship destroyed, 3 more appeared. For every swarm crushed, another wave spilled from the dark. Their hunger was endless, their numbers uncountable. System after system fell. The Grax legions, known for their brutality, were cut apart. The core empire lost entire star clusters in weeks. Even the Ziran, proud and ancient, could not stop the tide. Their mighty armadas bled ships faster than they could build them. The council chamber, once loud with arguments, grew heavy with fear. Delegates no longer shouted at each other. They whispered. They trembled. They prayed to stars that no longer listened. One by one, voices rose with desperation. We cannot hold them. They will devour us all. We must unite, or the galaxy is finished. And so the council sent pleas. Not requests, pleas. Every empire, every world, every ally was called upon to fight. They begged for soldiers, for ships, for weapons. The council even sent envoys to the borders of Earth, to the silent humans who had never answered. The envoys did not return. The humans gave no reply. Not a word, not a signal, nothing. That silence cut deeper than any wound. Do they not see? Cried the Valekan, their glowing bodies flickering with despair. Do they not understand? Roared the Grax generals, their claws raking the floor. The elder Ziran spat his fury. Of course they understand, but they do not care. They hide in their little blue world while the rest of us burn. No one disagreed, yet in their hearts a question whispered, or are they waiting? The Sorak kept coming. They struck at the core itself, the heart of the galaxy. Entire sectors fell silent, stars swallowed by shadow. Refugees flooded the Council's worlds, broken, starving, terrified. In the skies above, Council fleets burned. Warships that had stood for centuries were torn apart like paper. Planetary defenses fell in hours. Hope began to die. The chamber of the Council shook with arguments once again. We must abandon the outer rim. No, we must defend it. Without it, the core will fall faster. Sacrifice the colonies. Save the homeworlds. No. We must unite everything we have for one final stand. But under every argument was the same bitter truth. None of it was enough. No matter how many fleets they built, the Sorak were stronger. No matter how many soldiers they sent, the Sorak were endless. The galaxy was losing. At last, one delegate, an old, weary leader of the Valekan, rose with trembling hands. His glowing form flickered weakly as he spoke. Where are the humans? The chamber fell silent. Where are they? He cried. We beg them. We pleaded. We need them now more than ever. Why will they not come? No one answered. No one could. Every eye turned, as it always did, to the empty chair of Earth. It sat in its place, untouched, as though carved from shadow. For centuries, it had been ignored. For centuries, it had been mocked. But now, in the hour of desperation, it drew every gaze. The emptiness of that chair was louder than any scream, heavier than any silence. They will not come. The elder Ziran hissed at last. They have never come. They are cowards, the chamber echoed with that word, cowards. But it rang hollow, even in the throats of those who spoke it. Because deep in their hearts, the galaxy feared a different truth. The humans were not cowards. They were waiting. The war raged on. Worlds burned. Fleets fell. The galaxy reached its breaking point. And above it all, the chair of Earth remained empty, cold, untouched. The Council's desperation turned to dread, and the whispers that had haunted them for centuries returned. Heavier than ever, when the humans finally come, will they save us? Or will they decide it is already too late? The galaxy bled. World after world fell to the Sorek dominion. Cities were eaten. Skies turned black. Oceans boiled with fire. Refugee fleets drifted through the stars, packed with the broken and the hungry. The proud empires of the Council, once mighty and unshakable, now clung to survival like leaves in a storm. Every day, the Council chamber grew more crowded with desperation. Leaders who once spoke with calm dignity now shouted like frightened children. Generals slammed their fists against crystal tables, begging for reinforcements that no longer existed. Scientists pleaded for time, but time was the one resource the galaxy had already lost. The Sorek were endless. Reports arrived in waves, each worse than the last. The Grax homeworld is gone. The colonies of the Veilkin have fallen. The core empire has lost half its stars. Every report was a knife in the heart of the Council. Every message of defeat chipped away at the last pieces of hope. Even the proud Zirin sat in silence now, their mandibles clicking with fear. At last, no one spoke of victory anymore. They spoke only of survival. "We must abandon the outer rim," one delegate said, voice shaking. "Save what little we can," another shouted back. "The rim feeds the core. If we abandon it, the core will starve. Then let it starve," another screamed. "Better to lose our crops than our lives." The chamber boiled with panic. Words turned into screams, screams into threats. No one listened. No one cared. The Council, which had ruled for 10,000 years, was breaking apart. And in the middle of all that chaos, the same question returned. Where are the humans? The words came from the Veilkin delegate, glowing faintly like a dying star. His voice shook with grief. Where are they? We begged them for help. We sent envoys. We prayed they would answer. Why will they not come? The chamber fell silent, every eye turning to the empty chair once more. It stood there, cold, untouched, the crest of Earth glimmering faintly in the chamber's light. It was no longer just a symbol of pride. It was a wound. It was an accusation. The elder Zirin broke the silence with bitter fury. They will not come, he spat. They are cowards, hiding in their blue world, laughing at us as we die. Murmurs of agreement followed. Others shouted the same word, cowards. The sound echoed in the chamber, but it carried no strength. Because deep in their hearts, none of them believed it. The humans were not cowards. No coward would refuse the galaxy's call for centuries. No coward would sit silent through ages of war and peace. No, humans were something else. Something they could not name. And that truth was far more terrifying. As the chamber argued and collapsed into despair, the war outside only grew worse. The Sorek pushed into the core itself, the heart of the galaxy. They devoured great fortresses as if they were nothing but crumbs. The mightiest fleets shattered like glass before their endless tide. The stars themselves seemed to flicker with fear. Refugees filled every world that still lived. Stations overflowed with the starving. Children cried in corridors of rust and smoke. Soldiers who once marched with pride now stumbled with hollow eyes, knowing their next battle would be their last. Hope was dying. Then came the day the Council had always feared. The Sorek reached the skies above the Council's own homeworld. Their black fleet stretched across the horizon, blotting out the suns. Their swarm engines growled like thunder, shaking the air and the ground alike. For the first time in 10,000 years, the chamber itself trembled under enemy fire. Delegates stared upward in horror as the ceiling shook and the stars outside burned with war. The end had come. In that moment, no one argued. No one shouted. The chamber was silent, filled only with the sound of fear. Some prayed to gods long forgotten. Some whispered apologies to families they would never see again. Some simply stared at the empty chair, tears in their eyes. The Veilkin delegate whispered, almost to himself, if only the humans had come. The elder Zirin turned toward the empty seat, his voice breaking with both rage and despair. Humans, he shouted, as if the empty chair could hear him. Do you hear us now? Do you see us burning? You were invited. You were begged. And still you remain silent. If you had strength, this is the time to show it. If you had courage, this is the time to prove it. But you will not. You will never come. His voice echoed harsh and bitter across the silent chamber. No answer came. The chair stayed empty, and so the galaxy braced itself for death. But deep in the dark skies above, hidden behind the black swarm of the Sorak, something stirred. It was not yet seen, not yet heard, but it was there, waiting. And though the Council did not know it, the silence of Earth was about to end. The Council's homeworld burned. The skies above the Crystal City were black with Sorak warships. Their living hulls twisted and pulsed like monstrous insects, wings of fire spreading across the stars. Planetary shields cracked under their assault. Great towers shook and crumbled. Refugee fleets fled in every direction, only to be torn apart by the swarm. Inside the chamber, the Council sat in silence, frozen in despair. Some prayed, some wept, some simply stared at the floor, waiting for death to come. And then, without warning, the sky changed. It began with a flicker. Sensors screamed first. Strange distortions appeared on every display, rippling in and out of existence. It was not the Sorak. It was something else, something deeper. The Council's generals rushed to their screens, panic in their voices. Unknown signatures detected. More fleets? No. No, it's... Before they could finish, space itself tore open. One by one, the ships emerged. They were black as the void, their armor gleaming like obsidian glass. Engines burned with steady blue fire, sharp and controlled. They moved with precision, not in chaos like the Sorak, but in perfect formation. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands, the human fleet filled the skies. A wall of warships stretching from horizon to horizon, blotting out the swarm with shadows even darker than the enemy's. Their shapes were strange to Council eyes. Long, angular, built for function, not beauty. They carried no banners, no symbols of pride, only the silent strength of machines built for war. The galaxy had whispered of human ships for centuries, but no one had imagined this. The Council chamber erupted with voices. Who are they? It cannot be. It is them. It's Earth. For a moment, fear and hope tangled in every heart. The empty chair of Earth glimmered in the corner of the chamber, no longer just a wound, but a promise. In the skies above, the Sorak swarm turned. They sensed new prey, new enemies. Their ships howled as they swarmed forward, black waves crashing against the human fleet. And then came the voice. It spread across every channel, every frequency, every ship and station, a voice that was steady, calm, and unmistakably human. Council forces. This is the Terran Defense Fleet, we heard you. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate stared upward, tears in their eyes. Some trembled. Some covered their mouths. Even the elder Zirin, bitter and proud, could not speak. The humans had answered. The battle began with thunder. The first human strike shattered the silence of centuries. Railguns roared, launching slugs at near-light speeds, tearing through Sorak hulls like paper. Torpedoes streaked across the void, their warheads burning with the fury of suns. Fighters poured out of hangars, weaving like silver arrows. Precise and merciless, the Sorak screamed, but they were not ready. For centuries, they had devoured weak fleets, broken defenses, crushed empires. But this was different. The humans had not spent centuries arguing in chambers. They had spent them building, training, preparing. Every human ship fired as part of one vast machine, their formation perfect, their discipline unshakable. Where the Sorak moved like endless insects, the Terran fleet moved like a single blade. From the Council chamber, the delegates watched in awe. They had seen wars before. They had seen empires clash, but they had never seen this. The humans fought with a kind of fury that was not wild but controlled. Every strike was deliberate. Every movement carried purpose. And when their weapons struck, the sky itself seemed to break apart. The once endless swarm began to falter. Ships that had devoured whole civilizations were cut down in minutes. Their formations shattered. Their hunger met a fire they could not swallow. In the chamber, voices rose with disbelief. They are pushing them back. Impossible. No fleet has ever, but it was real. Before their eyes, the unstoppable enemy was being stopped. And then a hush fell as the human voice returned across the channels. We are here now. Hold your lines. Do not break. This is no longer the day the galaxy dies. This is the day we fight back. The Sorak swarmed harder, throwing their endless numbers against the human wall. But for every swarm that crashed, the Terran fleet answered with fire. Hours passed. The skies blazed with destruction. Whole constellations lit up with war. But still the humans held. Still their line did not break. Slowly, impossibly, the swarm began to retreat. For the first time in living memory, the Sorok fled. The chamber of the council shook, but not from enemy fire. This time it shook from voices rising in hope, from hearts daring to believe. Delegates who had been ready for death now clung to life. Generals stared at their screens with tears in their eyes. Refugees on the ground lifted their heads and saw the sky not filled with monsters, but with defenders. The humans had come. The empty chair was no longer empty. Not in spirit. Above the council's skies, 1,000 warships waited. And with them came the end of silence. The sky burned with war. The Sorok swarm, vast and endless, had never known fear. They had consumed empires, devoured fleets, crushed defenses that stood for centuries. They believed themselves unstoppable. But against the Terran fleet they faltered. The first human strike had cut through them like a blade through paper. Sorok ships burst apart in showers of burning fragments, their living hulls torn wide by railgun slugs moving faster than thought. Explosions rippled across the void, lighting up the darkness like stars being born and dying all at once. The swarm screamed, their ships shuddering with fury. More waves surged forward, a tide of black Keaton and fire. But the humans did not break formation. They held their line, steady and merciless. Every human ship moved with purpose. Destroyers darted like wolves, weaving between enemy formations and striking with precision. Cruisers stood like towers of steel, unleashing volleys of plasma that boiled entire clusters of enemy vessels. Carriers opened their bays, releasing swarms of fighters that streaked across the void like silver arrows. And at the center, the massive dreadnoughts advanced, giants of war, their cannons roaring with thunder. Every shot was a sentence of death. Every strike was a promise kept. The galaxy watched in silence. On the Council's homeworld, citizens huddled in bunkers, staring at the skies above. For days they had seen only black swarm clouds blotting out the suns. Now they saw something else. They saw human ships cutting paths of fire through the enemy. They saw hope written in streaks of blue light and storms of steel. In the chamber, delegates pressed close to their screens, their voices trembling. They fight like no one else. They are not just holding them, they are winning. By the stars, this is what they were hiding. Even the elder Zirin, who once spat only hatred, sat in silence, mandibles frozen. His eyes glimmered with something he had never felt before. Awe. The humans fought differently than any fleet the galaxy had ever known. Other empires fought with pride, shouting their names into the void. The humans fought with silence. No boasting, no music, no banners. Only cold, disciplined strikes one after another, as if they had trained for this single day for centuries. It was not chaos. It was not rage, it was precision. It was patience turned into fire. The Sorok screamed louder, throwing themselves against the Terran line. Their ships collided in suicidal waves, trying to overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers. For a moment, the void was nothing but black tides and firestorms. But the Terran fleet had prepared for this. Hidden mines bloomed in the darkness, exploding into walls of energy that shredded entire swarms. Flanking groups of human frigates struck from invisible positions, cutting through the enemy's sides. Even as the swarm pressed harder, the humans adapted, shifted, closed their ranks. Every loss was answered with 10 victories. Every strike was answered with a greater one. The swarm's endless hunger met an even greater will, the human will to survive. In the chamber, one delegate whispered, "They do not fight to conquer, they fight to end." Another answered, "They have carried this fire in silence for centuries." The Velkan delegate wept softly, his glowing form flickering with relief. They were never absent. They were preparing. On the battlefield, the tide began to turn. What had seemed impossible only hours ago now unfolded before the galaxy's eyes. The Sorok, once endless, began to scatter. Their formations broke. Their howls of hunger turned into shrieks of panic. For the first time in living memory, the Devourers knew fear. The humans pressed forward. Dreadnought cannons carved fire across the swarm. Fighters pierced the enemy's core like lightning through clouds. And as the battle reached its height, a single command rang through the fleet. Push them back, and they did. The swarm retreated, slowly at first, then faster. Entire clusters of ships broke away. fleeing into the dark void they had once ruled. The humans did not chase. They held their line steady, unbroken, letting the galaxy see the truth with their own eyes. The Council's homeworld, once moments from destruction, still stood. Its skies, once drowned in shadow, now shone with burning fragments of broken Sorax ships. The galaxy had been saved, at least for today. Inside the chamber, silence reigned again. But it was no longer the silence of despair. It was the silence of awe. The delegates stared at the screens, at the humans, at the fleet that had come without warning and turned certain death into hope. The Veilkin delegate whispered, voice trembling, "They saved us." And in the corner, the empty chair of Earth seemed to glow in the chamber's light. No one dared mock it now. No one dared look away. The humans had filled their silence with fire, and the galaxy would never forget the first strike of Earth. The war was not over, but for the first time in living memory, the galaxy could breathe. The Sorax swarm had been broken, their endless hunger driven back into the dark. The skies above the Council's homeworld were no longer filled with death, but with human warships standing guard like black mountains against the stars. And now, the Council wanted answers. The chamber of the Council was silent as the human transmission came through. A great screen flickered to life, and there he was, the human admiral. His face was lined, his eyes sharp and weary, his uniform dark and simple. No gold trim, no jewels, no banners, only steel-gray cloth and the weight of command. Behind him, windows showed the vast fleet, still glowing with the fire of battle. For a long moment no one spoke. Delegates who had once cursed Earth now stared at the admiral with fear and awe. Some lowered their eyes, unable to meet his steady gaze. At last, the Veilkin delegate, glowing faintly with nervous light, found the courage to speak. "Admiral of Earth, why did you not come before? We begged you, for centuries we called. For centuries you left your chair empty. Why stay silent until now?" The question hung in the air, heavy as stone. Every delegate waited, hearts pounding, breaths held. The admiral leaned forward slightly, his voice steady and low, yet it carried across every ear in the chamber. "Because while you were debating, we were preparing." A murmur rippled through the chamber, but no one interrupted. The admiral continued. "When the Council was meeting in comfort, deciding trade routes and arguing over borders, humanity was burying its dead. When you celebrated treaties, we were fighting wars you never saw. When you signed your peace, we carried our scars into the dark." He paused, his eyes hard, his voice heavy with memory. "You called us arrogant for not coming to your meetings, but we did not stay away out of pride. We stayed away because we had no time for talk. We learned that survival is not built on speeches. It is built on steel. It is built on blood. It is built on being ready for the day when talking no longer matters." The chamber was silent. Delegates glanced at each other, shame flickering in their eyes. For centuries, they had called Earth foolish. For centuries, they had mocked the empty chair. Now they understood what that emptiness had truly meant. The admiral's voice softened, but only slightly. "Do you know why we heard you now?" he asked. No one answered. Because now was the moment we built for. Every generation of humanity lived with one truth, that one day the sky would fall and no one would save us but ourselves. We lived with that fear. We trained with it. We prepared for it. And when we heard the swarm had come for you, we knew. The day had finally arrived. The elder Zarin rose slowly, his mandibles clicking nervously. For once, there was no hatred in his voice, only confusion. "And if the swarm had not come, would you have stayed silent forever?" The admiral looked at him, eyes cold but not cruel. "Perhaps. We do not seek glory. We do not seek a throne in your chamber. We only seek survival. Humanity has never needed to be the loudest voice. We only needed to be the last one standing." The words struck the chamber like thunder. The Veilkin delegate bowed his glowing head. "You saved us all, yet you say it was not for us." The admiral's gaze softened for the first time. "We saved you because saving you saved ourselves. If the swarm devoured the galaxy, they would come for us next. But know this. When humanity fights, We do not fight halfway. We do not fight for borders or for pride. We fight to the end. That is why you see us as we are now. He gestured to the fleet behind him. 1,000 warships, generations of silence, centuries of preparation, all for this one moment. The chamber was heavy with emotion. Some delegates wept openly. Others hung their heads in shame. Even the proud Zarin could not find words. At last, the Admiral's voice came one final time, steady and sharp as steel. Do not mistake us. We are here now, but we are not your saviors. We are survivors. And in this war you will survive too, if you are willing to learn as we did. Not with endless talk, not with empty pride, but with sacrifice, with preparation, with the will to endure. The screen went dark. The council chamber sat in silence. For once there were no arguments, no shouts, no laughter. Only the weight of the truth humanity had spoken. The empty chair of Earth still stood in the circle, but no one looked at it as they once had. It was no longer a wound. It was a lesson, a warning. The humans had answered the question at last, and the galaxy would never forget their answer. The chamber of the Galactic Council had never felt so heavy. For days, the delegates had spoken in whispers, their voices quiet as children before thunder. The humans had struck down the swarm, had broken the unbreakable, had shown the galaxy a strength no one expected. Now the galaxy waited for the final step. Would Earth finally take its place? The empty chair sat in the circle, glowing faintly under the lights. For centuries it had mocked them, a reminder of Earth's silence. But today it no longer looked empty. It looked like it was waiting. The delegates shifted uneasily. Some wanted to speak, but none found the courage. They had always been quick to argue, but now their tongues felt tied. The sky above their world still carried the shapes of human warships, thousands of black hulls gleaming like shadows of gods. None dared mock Earth again. Then the doors of the chamber opened. A single human walked inside. He was not dressed in gold or silk. His uniform was plain, dark, trimmed only with the symbols of his rank. His face was calm, carved like stone, his eyes sharp, but not cruel. Behind him walked no army, no guards, no banners. He came alone. Yet every delegate felt the weight of his steps. It was the weight of a people who had stood in silence while the galaxy played games. It was the weight of centuries of preparation, of sacrifice, of steel forged in fire. And when he reached the empty chair, he did not look around the room. He simply sat. A silence deeper than space itself fell across the chamber. The once empty seat was filled. The humans had come at last. The Velkin delegate, trembling with light, finally spoke. "Representative of Earth," he said, his voice full of awe, "the galaxy welcomes you. We are grateful beyond words." The human looked at him. His voice, when it came, was steady, deep and simple. "Gratitude is not why we are here." The delegates shifted. Some flinched. Others lowered their eyes. The human continued. "We are here because the galaxy is at war. We are here because survival demands it. The swarm has been broken, but not destroyed. They will come again, stronger, hungrier, and next time, if we are not ready, no one will survive." His words cut through the chamber like a blade. The truth was bitter, but no one dared deny it. The Zarin elder finally spoke, his voice softer than it had ever been. "Then what must we do?" The human's gaze swept across the chamber, steady and sharp. "You must stop wasting time. You must stop thinking survival can be bought with talk alone. You must build, train, sacrifice. Every world, every race, every hand. No more empty promises. No more waiting for someone else to fight your battles. Humanity will stand with you. But you must stand as well." The chamber was still. The delegates looked at each other, and for the first time in centuries there were no arguments, no pride, no petty disputes, only the heavy truth of survival. The human's voice dropped, softer now, almost weary. Humanity did not come here to rule you. We do not seek crowns or thrones. We came here because we learned long ago that the galaxy is cruel, and if you wish to live in it, you must be cruel enough to survive. His eyes darkened, but his words carried a spark of hope. But together, we can be more than survivors. We can build a future where the swarm never rises again. That is why we are here. The delegates bowed their heads. Some wept. Some clenched their hands in silence. The council chamber, once a hall of endless quarrels, now felt like the heart of something new. The seat of Earth was filled at last, but Earth had not come begging for inclusion. Earth had come with steel, with fire, and with a demand that could not be ignored. Change or die. Outside the chamber, the skies still held 1,000 Terran warships. They did not move, did not fire, did not threaten. They simply waited, silent guardians above a world that had been given one more chance. Children in the streets pointed to the ships with wonder. Citizens wept with relief. Soldiers stared with awe, knowing they had witnessed the day the galaxy shifted forever. Above them all, the Terran fleet stood as a promise. Humanity had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. Inside the chamber, the human representative spoke one final line, his voice echoing across every ear, every heart. From this day forward, humanity will no longer stand apart. We will stand with you. But remember this. When the swarm returns, when the dark comes again, the question will not be whether Earth will fight. The question will be, will you? The chamber trembled with silence, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy understood what hope felt like. The chair of Earth was filled and the future had begun.